Hello and good evening. My name is Catherine Kaplan. I work at SEB Housing, and this is the information session for the 15 affordable rental units at the Sanctuary at Brook in Scituate. And the purpose of this session is to give a little bit of background information on the available units. We're also going to cover the application, the eligibility and lottery processes, and also what to expect after the lottery. So if you have any questions during this session, you can go ahead and type them into the chat box in Zoom, or you can unmute yourself. When you come into this Zoom meeting, you are going to be muted automatically. But if you do have a question, please unmute yourself and we will try to address it for you. And then once you're done with the question, just make sure that you mute yourself again so we can try to minimize any unnecessary noise. If you want to dial in, if you'd rather use a conference call, you can join this session by phone. We have the conference call running concurrently to this information session, and you can dial the number that I'm going to go ahead and put into the chat box right now. Just type in the number for you and the code. And there is how you could join by phone if you would like to. So this is a live session. It's being recorded, as you saw when you joined in, and it's going to be saved to SEB Housing's YouTube channel. If you're watching this after the fact, it will be available there if you would like to view anything afterwards. So after this info session, if you have any questions that maybe you didn't think of in the session, you can email us at info@sebhousing.com. And if you prefer to call us, you can call us by the 617 number on your screen as well, and we'll be able to answer any of those questions. All right, so some background on SEB. We are an affordable housing consultant group hired by the developer. We're not on site, we're not the management team or the leasing office for the Sanctuary in Scituate. We were hired by the developer to market the affordable units and conduct a lottery after reviewing applications and determining an applicant's eligibility before running the lottery. So in the initial phases, we are going to be your main point of contact rather than the management or leasing office. But further along in the process, the on-site management team at the Sanctuary in Scituate will be taking over as your main point of contact. So there's really two broad steps in the process. And step one is to apply for and be determined eligible for the affordable housing program. So during that step, you're going to be in touch with SEB Housing. We're going to answer any questions you might have on the program. We're also going to review your application and the supporting documents. And if you're eligible, you're going to be entered into the lottery and given a lottery application number, and eventually have a position on the waiting list. During step two, you're going to be in contact with the leasing office, and you're going to be going through your lease eligibility, which is separate from the screenings that you will have had with SEB Housing. The leasing office might be checking for things like credit, rental history, criminal background, all of the types of things that landlords are usually looking to check for any tenant. So once approved, you would work with the leasing office or the management team to reserve and lease an apartment from there. So going to get into a lot of the details of the units, how to apply in the lottery. But first, just want to direct you again to our website. If you determine that you're eligible or that you're interested in this housing opportunity, you can find the application on our website. So you could go to sebhousing.com, and then you're going to select I want to rent, because this is a rental opportunity. You're going to then select Sanctuary at Brook, and you'll be taken to a page that is specific to this property. You'll be able to download a version of the application and an information packet from that page. The information packet contains most of the material I'm going to be covering in the session tonight. We're not going to have time to cover everything, but I will be reviewing the main points. Even if you attend the session or you watch it after the fact, it's recommended that you take a look at the information packet because there is a lot of information in there that's going to be helpful to you as you go through this process. So if you choose to apply for one of these affordable units at the sanctuary, you're going to complete that lottery application and you can submit it to us in one of several ways. We try to make it as easy for you as possible to submit this application. So you could email it to us at info@sebhousing.com. You could scan it to us. You can fax it to us. Our fax number is on the first page of the lottery application. You can send it by regular mail to our address at 257 Hillside Ave in Needham. Or if you're in the Needham area, we do have a 24-hour secure drop box that's located at our office in Needham. We check that box every day for applications, so it will be secure there. Whatever option is most convenient for you, we encourage you to go ahead and get your application in early if you are interested in this opportunity. And part of the reason for that is it is a fairly lengthy application. As you will see when you are reviewing it, there's a lot of supporting documentation that you're going to have to submit with your lottery application. We're going to talk a lot more about that during this session. Applications are due by 2 p.m. on July 25th, so about a month from today is when they're due, and applications need to be delivered by that date in order to be considered. You do not need to be a resident of Scituate to apply for this lottery. There are several affordable units which have local preference for residents of Scituate, which we'll be discussing later on, but it does not prohibit anyone from applying or leasing a unit at the sanctuary. So I don't think there's any questions, so I'm going to keep going here with some background information on the units at the sanctuary. So you can go ahead and check out the website for the sanctuary at Herring Brook and Scituate. They have some information on there about the neighborhood, their amenities, and some photos. So you can go ahead and check that out. It is sanctuary@herringbrook.com. It is here on the slide that's on your screen. So the sanctuary is a 60-unit luxury apartment community that's located within the 16 acres of conservation land at 126 Chief Justice Cushing Memorial Drive in Scituate. The sanctuary features exceptional views of the area and modern amenities that include great room, a fitness center, an outdoor patio with fireplaces and grills that overlook the water. The units have 9-foot ceilings and also have very large windows, open floor plans, kitchen islands, high-end countertops, shaker-style cabinetry, wood flooring, glass showers, in-unit washer dryers, and stainless steel appliances. So it's a high-end building in a really beautiful setting on the North River. And 15 affordable units are going to be made available through this process to households making up to 80% of the area median income, which is based on household size. So this is a 4-story building. It is equipped with an elevator, and the affordable apartments that are being offered include 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. There's some information up on your screen now about them that I'm going to go through. So there are 7 total affordable 1-bedroom apartments, and those feature between 875 square feet to 970 square feet, and they're going to be renting for $1,968. There are also 7 total 2-bedroom apartments that feature between 1,050 square feet and 1,215 square feet, and those are going to rent for $2,337. There's also 1 3-bedroom apartment, which features 1,340 square feet, and that will rent for $2,671. I also want to mention that one of the 1-bedroom apartments is disabled accessible. So these rents are considerably less than the rents that are going to be charged for the market rate units within the development. And this particular housing opportunity is not subsidized housing. So the affordable rent amounts are not set based on an applicant's income or their specific financial circumstances. So what this means is the rent doesn't change if your income changes. These are set set rent amounts. And the rents for the program are set using a formula that is based on the Housing and Urban Development HUD's area median incomes for the Boston, Cambridge, Quincy area, which is where Scituate falls. And these are set with the idea that the amounts, the rent amount should be affordable to households making up to 80% of AMI. The rent may increase once per year, and this typically occurs in the spring, right around the time where HUD revises their area median incomes. There will always be advance notice if there's any rent increase to tenants, and the increases are usually modest, no more than $25 to $75. And I also want to note that the rents would never change in the middle of your lease. So since it's possible that there is going to be more interested applicants than we have eligible or available units at the sanctuary, these apartments are being made available through this lottery process that we're going to be detailing tonight to households who have incomes at or below the 80% AMI income for the Boston area. We're going to talk about those income limits in just a few minutes. I also want to mention that the affordable units that were selected at the sanctuary were selected by the owner, and they were approved by Mass Housing as being representative of the units in the building as a whole. So what this means is these affordable units are not the smallest in the building, they're not all in one location in the building, and they're not identifiable as affordable in any way from the exterior. So I'm going to pause there and just ask if there's any questions about the basic overview of the units at the sanctuary before I go on to the eligibility requirements for the affordable housing program. So if you have any questions, you can either type them into the chat or unmute yourself. All right, I'll move along. So the eligibility requirements for this affordable housing program, there are four basic or four main eligibility requirements. The first is income and assets of the household. So as I mentioned, anyone who applies or for this affordable housing program must have a household income that is at or below 80% of area median income. And we're going to get a lot more into that in just a couple minutes. The second item to keep in mind for eligibility purposes is that household priority is going to be given based on household composition. So when you fill out your lottery application, you're going to have indicated what your household type is, and that will either be type 1, 2, or 3. So for example, if you're a one-person household or a couple that shares a bedroom, you're considered a type 1 household. In addition to a one-bedroom unit, you may want to also apply for the affordable 2 or even 3-bedroom units. But you want to keep in mind that type 2 and 3 households will be placed ahead of you on the 2 and 3-bedroom waiting list if you're a type 1 household. Similarly, if you're a type 2 household and you apply for a 3-bedroom apartment, you just want to be aware you absolutely can do that. We encourage you to do that if you're interested in those apartments. But you're going to want to know that type 3 households will have priority on the on the 3-bedroom waiting list. And so the idea of this is for the program to ensure that, by using these household types, larger households are given priority for larger units. And so all of the larger 3- and 4-bedroom units at some of these properties are not always occupied by households who may not need that extra space. Page 7 of the information packet has a lot more information on household types. So you can go ahead and take a look at that if you need more information. The third eligibility criteria is that applicants may not own a home upon move-in. So if you own a home right now, you can still apply for an apartment at the sanctuary. You would just need to have sold that home and have your name off of the deed by the time you were signing the lease. The fourth and final eligibility criteria, this doesn't come up often, but households cannot have financial interest in the development and can't be considered a related party. A related party would be someone who works for or is somehow related to the owner. So these units are being offered by SLV WW Scituate LLC. If you work for them, you may not be eligible for this lottery. So just keep that in mind. All right, so I want to circle back to the first eligibility criteria to explain more about income and assets of a household who's applying for the affordable housing program. The income limit, so since these are affordable units, they're being made available at rents, like I said, that are lower than the market rate units within the building. So maximum income limits for the program, I'm pulling the slide up now with the numbers for you, are set by household size, and that would include everyone who is going to be living with you in the unit and who is going to be listed on the lease. These numbers are listed in the application and information packet on our website. There's no need to write them down or anything, but I am going to read through them for you just in case you can't see it on your device that you're watching this on. So the household size of 1, the maximum income limit for a household would be $78,300. If you have 2 people in the household, the maximum income limit is $89,500. 3 people, $100,700. 4 people, $111,850. A 5-person household, the maximum income limit is $120,800. And for a 6-person household, the maximum income limit is $129,750. There's no asset limit for rental applicants. So we'll get a little bit more into that in a couple minutes too. All households are going to be required, or all applicants are going to be required to submit supporting income and asset documentation. And the required documents are going to vary a little bit depending on what your household's income sources are. But for all households, regardless of what their income source is, we are going to need copies of your most recent year's federal tax returns and bank statements for the last 3 months. Section 2 of the application is really very detailed and lists all of the information that we're going to need to verify for specific income sources. So for example, how many pay stubs you're going to need if you're employed, all of that is listed on the application, with the hope that giving you that a lot of information is going to lead to you understanding what you need to submit, obviously, with your application. So take a look at that and try to get all of your information together so you can submit it by the application deadline. So just to give a basic overview of how income is going to be calculated. So income for this affordable housing program is calculated as a projection of your income over the next 12 months. And that's for all household members. All household members' income is included, so this includes bonuses and overtime. And the only exceptions are for minors. So anyone under the age of 18 who is working and they're earning a wage, we're not going to count those wages towards your household income. For dependent full-time students who are working, we're only going to count $480 of the wages when we're determining your eligibility. So almost none of those are counted towards your eligibility amount. We must count gross income, so not net income. So that's the net income, the gross income would be before taxes. We understand you don't make and you don't take home that full amount of your salary, but the program does require that we count gross income for applicants. So obviously everyone's income circumstances are unique. So while some applicants are going to have a consistent weekly salary with pay stubs coming in throughout the year, other households are going to have self-employment or are going to be working seasonally, for example. In those circumstances, we might need to look further back in the past in order to project your annual income for the next 12 months. And then I want to note too, specifically for applicants who are self-employed, You're also going to need to complete a profit and loss statement and provide supporting documentation. And there is going to be a template or sample profit and loss statement included at the end of the application. So your business expenses are considered if you are self-employed, but if you are not self-employed, it is always gross income that we count. So in general, any income you have been making, we will assume you will continue to be making going forward unless we have definitive documentation stating that you're no longer earning that income source. So for example, you might have a written letter from your employer stating that bonuses or overtime are not going to be paid out or allowed in the coming year. We would accept that and take a look at it and consider it. But we do want to make clear that we're not permitted to accept statements from applicants. So for example, if we have documentation from you showing that you've made $80,000 within the last year, but an applicant, you are telling us that you plan to work far less in the coming year. You're going to have less hours. You're going to make about $50,000 in the coming year. We're still going to need to count $80,000 as your projected income, unless we have something definitive in writing from an employer, for example, or some sort of official documentation that is proving otherwise, that you will not be making $80,000 in the coming year. So just some examples of things that you want to keep in mind when you're submitting documentation for your income. A lot of the income sources that you want to keep in mind are listed in a table on the lottery application. So we do suggest that all applicants take a look at that so you don't overlook any of these income sources. They include wages that could be from self-employment or wages from an employer, Social Security, SSDI, child support, alimony, retirement distributions, unemployment, workman's comp, a pension, periodic payments from friends and family, assets that generate income. We just want to make sure that we have everything that we need in order to determine your eligibility. So minimum income, there is no minimum income for the affordable housing program. However, most management teams, including the team at Scituate, is going to want to be sure that all tenants can afford the rent, regardless of whether or not the unit is market rate or affordable. And the management company has set a minimum household income equivalent to 2.5 times the monthly rent. Those amounts are listed in the information packet, and I'm going to read them for you now just so you can keep them in mind. So for households looking to rent a 1-bedroom apartment, the approximate minimum household income is $59,040. For a 2-bedroom, it's $70,110, and for a 3-bedroom, it's $80,130. Households with mobile housing vouchers, if you have a housing subsidy, for example, you can disregard those minimum incomes because they do not apply to your household. So you do want to keep in mind that if you do have a housing voucher, you're going to want to check in with the agency that issues the voucher to confirm that the rents are within the agency's payment standards or maximum rents. The leasing office at the sanctuary is also going to eventually need to confirm with your housing authority or agency that the rents are permissible. But it would obviously be better for you to know sooner rather than later if the rents would work for you, so you're not disappointed when you've already filled out an application and got through the lottery. Applicants without a voucher, though, you are going to need to have a household income between the minimum income floor and the maximum program income limits. The only exception to this is households whose income is just below the minimum income limit. If a household is close to that minimum amount that I just listed, but you have some liquid assets that you may be able to access in order to afford the rent, your application may be considered by the leasing office at the sanctuary. So keep in mind that the minimum income limits are not quite as strictly enforced as the income limits, the maximum income limits, which are a program requirement. So ultimately, it's going to be the decision of the management office or the leasing team at the sanctuary during their lease screening, whether a household meets the minimum income requirements. And then I mentioned before that there's no asset limit for affordable rental opportunities. So, if you have a significant amount of assets, you are encouraged to apply. You might be retired or something of that sort, and you would still be eligible for this opportunity. We are still going to need to collect information related to your assets, though. So although there is no limit, we do need to still confirm whether or not you have some income that those assets are generating, because that income will be counted. And when you think of assets, you might think of only checking and savings accounts, but we are going to need information for other types of assets, and that could include CDs, retirement amounts, so the net cash value of a 401k or IRA, for example. Even your Venmo and PayPal accounts, we are required to ask for copies of those statements. Stocks, bonds, that sort of thing. We will not need documents on personal assets, such as jewelry, art, cars, that sort of thing. Are there any questions on the eligibility criteria for the Affordable Housing Program or the lottery? Just want to check and make sure here, because I've gone through a lot of information. And the next section here I'm going to talk about will be the lottery itself. All right, I'll keep going. So I want to encourage you again, if you're interested in this opportunity, go ahead and apply early to try to get the process started. We do also want to mention that you may apply for more than one unit size. So if you think you might be interested, for example, in both a 1 and 2 bedroom unit, you should indicate that on your application. There's really no downside to doing so, but there is potentially a downside if you apply to only 1 unit size and then later you decide you're interested in the larger apartment, because there may not be one that is still available. So you submit the application to SCB Housing. We're going to review your application and we will contact you if any information is missing or appears incorrect. So you will then have a chance to correct or resubmit as necessary. Most applicants do not submit a 100% complete application on their first try. And there's a couple reasons for that. The first being there's just a lot of information required. And then also, even if you do submit all of the information that was originally requested, we often have further questions that the information you submitted leads us to. So we might have questions on your bank deposits or pay stubs once we have them in hand. So don't be discouraged by that. It's completely fine. We're going to give you additional time to supply the additional information that we need. And that's really part of the reason that we encourage applicants to get their application in early to begin the process. So if you're found eligible for the lottery, you're going to be sent a lottery application number, and it will come in the form of a series of numbers. So this is the number that's going to be drawn in the lottery. So it's meant to be an anonymous identifier. We're not going to be calling your full name during the lottery session. It's not a ranking of any sort, and it corresponds with the order in which we received your application. So if you were the very first person to submit your application, your number is going to be A.001. So the letter that you receive with your lottery application number is also going to confirm whether or not your household qualifies for local preference. You will have indicated on your application if you believe that your household qualifies for local preference, and the necessary verification you will have already submitted to us along with your application. Local preference might apply to you or to your household if you live in Scituate, work for the town, or work for a business located within Scituate, or if you are a guardian of a child who is attending Scituate Public Schools. Up to 70% of the affordable units at the sanctuary are going to have local preference, which means that some local preference households will get priority for units compared to households who do not have local preference. But you also want to keep in mind that for 2 and 3 bedroom units, household type is more heavily weighted than local preference in determining the waitlist placement. So what that means is, for example, if you're a type 2 household, and you apply for a 2-bedroom unit, you're still going to have priority over type 1 local preference households for that 2-bedroom apartment. So in short, you don't need to have local preference. You shouldn't be deterred at all from applying if you don't have local preference. And if you want to see more information on local preference, it can be found on page 17 of the information packet that's available on our website under the sanctuaries listing. So if you happen to be found ineligible for the lottery at any point during the process, maybe you're over income, you own a home, you're going to be informed, and we encourage any questions that you have, we encourage you to contact us. So the lottery itself is going to be held on August 8th at 6 p.m. It's going to be the same format as this information session. Numbers will be drawn from a box, held up to the screen and recorded. It will be a Zoom session. During the lottery, every lottery number will be drawn or picked. So, oftentimes we think of lotteries as being there's one winner on each wait list. That's really not the case here. We hold the lottery in order for us to establish the wait list for these affordable units. And so if you're a type 1 household and you're drawn first in the lottery for a 2-bedroom unit, you're still going to be behind all of these type 2 households on a 2-bedroom waiting list. So it is beneficial in general for your number to be called early in the lottery, but it is not necessarily the deciding factor on whether or not you'll be moving forward in the process to lease the unit, because we do need to sort the results by the local preference priority, and then also by the household type that we discussed as well. So during the lottery itself, you're not really going to know where you fall on the wait list, but you will soon after it, because we do try to get those wait lists out within 24 hours to all lottery households. Also, households who were entered into the lottery may be found ineligible by the leasing office. So, someone who's in front of you on the wait list maybe decides not to rent the unit, or they're not eligible. So if your number is drawn later on in the lottery process, you don't want to lose hope. You might still have an opportunity to move forward in the process and rent one of the units at the sanctuary. So like I said, following the lottery, we're going to go ahead and populate the waiting list. We're going to take all these preferences, local preference and household type into consideration, and whether or not your household requires an accessible unit, of which there is one at the sanctuary. And we're going to do our best to send those waiting lists over the next day, like I said. And those waiting lists will be sent by email, so you know exactly where you stand. If you don't have an email address, we will send it by regular mail. So when you're reviewing that email after the lottery, you're going to find your lottery application number, and you can see where you fall on the list. Again, it's not going to show your first and last name. It's going to show that application number that you should have. And at that point, you'll have a better idea of whether or not you're going to be invited to move forward, excuse me, for the next step in this process. And that next step will be applying for the lease with the leasing office. So at this time, following the lottery and the established waiting list, we're going to connect those top households on the waiting list with the management team. Your contact information will be shared with the leasing office at the sanctuary, and you will also be given the management team's contact information. So the next step, which is applying for that lease, can begin. So at this point, we at SCB Housing have already completed the lottery and the program eligibility screenings. We have not screened your household for lease eligibility, though. And the management company does that and will be, as part of the screening, as I mentioned earlier, might be checking things like your credit, your rental history, criminal background to determine whether or not you're eligible to rent with them. You also want to be aware that the management or leasing office might invite more households to complete the lottery screen, or sorry, the lease screening, than there are available units. So for example, at the sanctuary, there are 7 one-bedroom affordable units, but 10 or more households might be invited from the wait list to complete the lease screening. Management companies often do this because the process of leasing units is slowed down by households who don't qualify. So they want to move the process along and screen everyone that they can. So even if you're the first household on the wait list, we encourage you not to immediately inform your current landlord that you're giving them notice and you're moving into an apartment at the sanctuary, because you haven't yet been lease approved by the management company. So just hold off on that until you are fully approved by both SEB and the leasing office. So at this point in the process, it is really beneficial to you if you have a position near the top of the wait list, because you would be the top household and you would have first chance to reserve an affordable unit. So for example, if you have the top position on a 1-bedroom waiting list, you'll have first choice at reserving one of the affordable 1-bedroom units. This is true even if another applicant who potentially was positioned behind you on the wait list happens to complete their lease eligibility with the management office before you. You're still going to be the person who is able to pick and reserve the first unit because you were top of the wait list. You may be able to tour the units and make your decision as to which unit you would like to reserve based on maybe where it is located in the unit, when it's available for occupancy, whatever variables or factors are important to you. So generally, it is better to be towards the top of the wait list. The second household on the wait list it was going to have second choice of the remaining units and so on. So SEB Housing's program certifications, after we have reviewed all of your documentation and confirmed that you're eligible for the affordable housing program, those certifications are good for 6 months. So if for any reason you move in more than 6 months after submitting your application to us, there's a chance that you would need to submit updated income documentation for us to update your file. So just keep that in mind, that you keep a file of your income, updated pay stubs, things like that, if you anticipate moving in more than 6 months from the date that you submitted your application. This probably isn't going to be an issue for you because I do believe the units at the sanctuary are expected to be available soon. So once you're leased, hopefully you have enjoyed being a resident at the sanctuary, and you'll be done with lease screenings until the lease renewal date. And that will happen at the anniversary date of your lease. So at that point, if you want to remain a tenant at the sanctuary, you would need to recertify your income with either SEB Housing or the management office prior to renewing your lease as an affordable tenant. If during the year your income increased and you're now above the 80% of AMI, that is fine. Affordable households will remain eligible for the apartments as long as your household income doesn't exceed 140% of the area median income. Page 16 of the info pack lists the 140% figures for the different household sizes. But for example, a household of 2 would have qualified for the lottery at an income at or below $89,500. That same household can make up to $125,300 at the time of their recertification in order to remain eligible for the affordable apartment at the sanctuary. So there's a decent gap there, even if your household income does increase. That about covers it. I do want to mention again, you can find the lottery application for the affordable apartments at the sanctuary at Herring Brook on our website. And you would select affordable housing opportunities, rental, and then you would see the Herring Brook listing there. So I'm going to hang around for just a minute, just in case there are any questions. You can go ahead and put them in the chat or unmute. And we encourage you to get those applications in for this opportunity. It seems like a great community.
Thank you, Catherine. It's Shauna with Sanctuary. I just wanted to thank you for your time.
Great, no problem. Thanks for joining in.
Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you.
All right, have a great night. If you have any questions, you can email us at info@sebhousing.com. if any questions come up later on. So have a great night. Good luck.